Hello everyone, hope you're doing well, hope you're having a good day. Yes, it is another episode of the Hustle Chronicles, but this is actually a special one because as I mentioned when we started this, the whole idea is we bring entrepreneurs, freelancers back on to see how their growth has been over the last 6 months to a year. We have a returning guest with us. She's doing incredible work. I always say I don't want to do introductions, so we're going to have our main guest speaker reintroduce themselves, and then we're going to be finding out about how the last year has been. So, Juice, it was great having you on last time. Great having you on again. Could we know a bit more about you and what you do?
Cool. Hi, everyone. Again, if you've seen me before. So I'm Ju, and I basically run a company called DBJ Studio UK. It was different a year ago, but we will get into that for obviously the recapping reasons. But I'm basically a brand designer and a brand coach. So my job basically is creating brands for people and also teaching people the fundamentals of branding. I also run a branding program called Branding 101 UK, which is specifically targeted at training Black women. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Well, that's perfect. And we're going to jump straight in with the first question. So let's talk about it. So we're going back a year.
Yes.
Okay, so you're still designed by Ju.
Yep.
So how has this rebrand, change in name, how's it evolved in the past year? And what new milestones have you achieved since you've last been on the podcast?
Cool. So I'll start with the name because I think that's probably the most obvious thing that's changed. So originally I was designed by Jujubeng. That's what I was when I first started, when I was back in 2019 begging people to still make their logos, like I said on the last episode. But I picked that name because I looked around and I saw that's what everyone else was doing, right? And so even though the name has served me well, I think everyone kind of gets to a stage, not just in business, but in life, where a pivot might be necessary. And I think, especially being someone who works with brands and builds brands, I realize how important it is to change things if they're not doing what they're meant to do, or if they're not helping you get closer to your goal. So I didn't want to be designed by Jujubeng anymore because I didn't think it fit the magnitude of, the organization I'm creating and just how large, my plans are. And over time, I realized that I'm a branding studio. I dabbled in agency, I dabbled in freelancer, I dabbled in all these things, but I've realized now I'm a branding studio. So to keep the essence of Design by Jujubeng, just shortened it to DBJ and then Studio. So we now have DBJ Studio. So that's kind of where that name came about. I think for me it was definitely important to keep the essence of who I was because I didn't want to completely just go left field and call myself, something that no one would resonate with. But I think this way I've managed to keep the true essence of me, the true essence of why I started the company and, the roots that we were built on, but then also have that leveling up in place. And I think just the direction that I'm going in, the rooms that I want to be able to step in, DBJ Studio just makes a lot more sense. So that's the name. I think in terms of what I've done in the last 12 months, let me think. So this was January last year, 2024. So Branding 101 Cohort 3 is complete. We finished it. We had a whole new cohort of ladies come in. Amazing cohort. It's probably been one of my favorite to date. Last time I was telling you about the partnership with Sky. That's fruitful as ever. And, we've been doing a lot. So Branding 101 got featured in the World Federation of Advertisers. They did a case study and included us in it because obviously we are diverse suppliers doing what we do. And that was amazing. And I think just a whole bunch of other stuff. Prices have increased, which is always lovely. My value has definitely gone up. But I think also just working on so many more projects that I love and just getting to meet new people, doing workshops. Like I started doing workshops for organizations, not just ones that I'm putting on myself, but actually getting hired now for doing these workshops, which is awesome because I think my plan has always been that I'm just going to be this powerhouse, this person who's just a force to be reckoned with. But when I started, I didn't quite know how I was going to do it or what that looked like. But I think the last 12 years has really solidified that everything that I want to do, I can do. So now it's just about laying some more roots and growing even more in 2025. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And we will, before we wrap up, we'll be asking you what this new future looks like.
Cool.
But yeah, let's go on to the next one, because it's really good to see that you've not only had that time to reflect and grow and sort of we've had the rebrand, but I think it's also to mention that as time passes, or within a year's time, challenges can arise. We've had challenges as part of work. I'm sure you've had challenges over the last 4 years. So have there been any significant challenges is the first question. And how have these essentially shaped your business or your personal growth? So the whole process of overcoming these challenges, how did that sort of help to shape you and what you are now, like your business now through this rebrand and over the last 12 months?
So I would probably say that one of my biggest challenges was the rebrand. And I think I would say the rebrand because it challenges something that is extremely important to me. I build brands all day for people. I know what brands are supposed to do. I know how they're meant to look. But it's almost like when they say doctors are the worst patients. I am the worst customer that any graphic designer or brand designer could ever dream of, because I'm so meticulous and I'm so particular. So it's not that I don't put effort into my clients. Of course I put effort into my clients, but I'm looking at it from a kind of like a third person perspective. When it's you who's actually creating your own brand and kind of doing this rebrand process, there's a lot of, well, I could do this, or do I want to do this? And do I want to do that? And so I think that was probably one of my biggest challenges. I knew the rebrand had to happen. I knew that there had to be that pivot that I spoke about because it was necessary for the business. But it's almost like I had too much choice because I hold the key to all of these different options that I can do. I think as well, the name was difficult. So at the tail end of 2024, I was already calling myself DBJ because Designed by Jujubeng, it was just quite long. And, it was always easier to refer to myself as DBJ. But then I was going through this process of, well, do I just rebrand as DBJ? And then I found that DBJ stood for something Bank of Japan. And then it stood for something else and something else. And I was like, the domain name was going to cost me £2,000. And I just said, listen, we've raised our prices, but we haven't raised it to the point where £2,000 on a domain name is even going to make sense, right? And so little things like that, trying to find the right name that still embodied everything I wanted it to embody, but also, fit the plans that I had was difficult. So yeah, I know I make it sound like it's just a couple things, but I think it really is that thing of where when it's you in the moment, this rebrand was pretty much a whole 8-month process, and it's weird because when I'm dealing with clients, a rebrand can take a matter of weeks. A rebrand can take a few months at max. So when it's me now and 8 months later, I'm still debating on what to do. That was a challenge. That was a challenge for me. And yeah, I just think that whole rebrand in general, I think what I did well, though, was that in 2023, I set up my 2024 quite nicely in terms of the things that I wanted to do. So I didn't really have challenges in terms of, actually executing my work. It was more the behind the scenes things that I was struggling with. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
No, I really appreciate it. It's really great to see because I think, as you said, sometimes, especially when you provide services, when you then almost are providing the service to yourself, you're then like you said, you're extra critical,
100%.
Trying to pick up everything. You're just like, no, this needs to be perfect.
And it's weird because I always say to people, so for example, some of my clients, they'll be like, I want to change here. And I'm like, no problem. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm annoying. And I'm like, listen, you are not annoying. I am annoying because when it's time for me to work with me, if I put it this way, if I, as another person, approached myself, I wouldn't hire myself. I would never, not in a million years. I'd probably pay myself to leave and go somewhere else because I know what I'm like and I know how meticulous I am. So yeah, I think literally when it is you trying to give yourself that same service that you offer to others, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So I think it's great to see that, as you mentioned, you've been able to do that. And it's as you said, it's worked really well. And I think one key thing to say that you mentioned was setting yourself up for the next year.
Yeah.
Because I think like one thing throughout all of these like conversations we've had, but even probably the last one that we had was everyone, like sometimes businesses or like programs or jobs or work is very much reactive. So even like on a personal level, some people might be like, actually, today I had or like the last few months of work have been really tough. Now is when I'm going to start looking for jobs.
Yeah.
And people always say like, it should never be that way. It should always be like, maybe I'm not necessarily saying you have to always be applying for jobs throughout the year. You might be like, okay, cool. Like,
why not?
Why not? Like, I'll check and see like, what's the market looking for now?
Yeah.
So when you do want to get to that stage, it's like, I've set myself up 100 what services I need or what qualifications and stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah, I feel like you said, like as a business owner, it's the same thing. If you want to work on a program, you want to set up, I don't know, like a podcast series, you want to do whatever. It's like, don't wait until the idea pops into your head and you're like, okay, sick. Now is like
exactly, yeah.
Start thinking about what you need to put in place to get to that stage.
And I think it's interesting even this whole topic because I feel like that's always something that I've done instinctively. And I'm not sure if it's because I've got a million things always going through my mind and I can't really focus on one thing too tough. But I've always been that person. Like take the program, for example, Branding 101. I'd already written course material months and months before I actually said, I'm going to now do a program. I didn't know what I was going to use it for. I didn't know where it was going to be useful. I didn't know I just wrote Branding 101 because I just said Branding 101. I never knew that was then going to, go on and be actually something. But I think it's those things sometimes that you don't even realize you're doing as well that can kind of set the building blocks for things going forward. Events that you go to, networking events that you go to, people who you just randomly speak to, you never quite know where that thing's going to get you. So I think 100%, the things that you are in control of and the things that you are aware of, do them. Do you get what I mean? If you've got an idea, jot some stuff down, park it, and then maybe in a couple months you come back to it. But I think it's also those things that we probably take for granted. Like just speaking to people on LinkedIn, if someone connects with you, speaking and saying, hey, how you doing? All of these things are adding towards your journey. And literally, I think half of the things that I've done that I really love about my business, I didn't even plan to do. Does that make sense? It was just kind of a byproduct of me doing something else. So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. And I think, like one of the things to, like, jump off, like, to continue the conversation of what you're talking about is, like you said, like, this idea of, like, if you've got an idea, sometimes you got to like park the bus because a friend recommended this book to me, or I always recommend it to people. It's called The Creative Act, The Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And it talks about this, like, essentially I haven't finished it, but the whole book is all about, like my friend.
The whole book, but you haven't finished it.
That's also one of my friends just been like, every year, just been like, oh, how's the book going? And I'm like, it's a slow read.
Get in
there. Like, I'll let you know when I finish. But it's all, like, what I've read is all about, like, the idea of so it starts off with, like, everyone's a creative. So it said whether you work in the creative industries, you work on, like, I don't know, like theatre plays, or you do, like, I don't know, make music, all this stuff. Everyone's a creative. He said literally just being a person, you're creative.
Yeah.
But he talked about, like, the whole creative process as a whole. So whether it's, like, coming up with new ideas, pivoting into new markets, all of this stuff. And he's talking about it mainly as a music producer and, like, his experience with that. But it's very general that, like, I would say whether you are a business owner or not, or if you're just a creative or not, like, it is very useful. And one thing he mentions is that, like, he said sometimes, like, stuff, you won't be able to do stuff. You might have this, like, world-changing, incredible idea, but you're like, actually, I've got to park the bucket on this.
Exactly.
I don't have the resources. Maybe it's something that, like, technology isn't at that stage yet.
Yeah.
He said it might also be that, like, in all honesty, that, like, it's something that if you commit to it now, it means that work that you feel like is actually, like, what's already established of the work that you're doing is then going to suffer because you're just doing things.
Exactly.
And he highlights that point of just write it down, having a book.
Yeah.
And then just, like, when the time comes and you've got more time, maybe you've got a bit of team,
Go through it. Yeah. Go through it. Literally, my sister Mayo, she was also on the podcast. She told me about just doing, like, a brain dump page in your notebook. And it's like, when you're doing your to-do list, have the things that you're going to do. But then if you're like me, 10 other things will pop up in your head at the time. She said, just write it down and then go back to it later. So now, if I do have any free time, which is very rare, but if I do have any free time, I literally just flip there and I say, oh yeah, this would actually work well with what I'm doing now, or this would be a good thing, or oh, I've now got a person who can help me fulfill that. But I think even this whole idea of just being able to park things off, that's a skill in itself. And I feel like it's a skill that people need to learn. Because especially in my industry where I'm working with so many new businesses or businesses that are trying to scale, I can have a client today saying, cool, so here's my idea. I want to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, so what are we doing first? And they'll be like, everything. And I'm like, but how is everything going to work? The events that you want to do are going to work because you've got a community. But if you haven't built your community first, you're going to be doing events with 2 people lining up outside. You're going to be stressed about tickets every second. And so I think it genuinely is a skill that maybe we're not taught. We're not taught how to be patient. We're not taught really how to take our time and all that delayed gratification. We don't like that. We want everything now. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn. It's okay to park things off. It's okay to actually just say, that's great, but it's not great right this second. So yeah, that's just one of the things that's a big skill. A big skill to learn.
No, 100%. And yeah, I feel like you said, that's something that, especially over the last year, I've been trying to myself, just realize I don't have to do everything.
Exactly. 100%.
We're going to go to the next question, which is actually looking ahead. So obviously it's 2025. Well, I say fresh in January, we're not almost at the end. But, some people may say we're still in the
early in the year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what new opportunities or collaborations are you looking forward to exploring this year that either maybe they're already in the process or they started towards the end of last year and they're going to expand the reach and impact of what you're doing, or what are ones that you hope, based on sort of the stuff you got planned, will lead to that?
So, first thing I'd probably say, in March, obviously International Women's Month. So me and my sister, again, who's been on the podcast. So we have an event coming up called Her Legacy. And it's also, it's a collaboration between us. But when me and my sister work together, it doesn't feel like collaboration. It just feels like we are one, basically. And I think the whole nature of the event is based on kind of our relationship. We're 2 women doing excellent things in the world who are trying to leave a legacy behind and are helping each other in the process. And that is exactly what the event is about. We're trying to create more spaces for women where they actually feel comfortable and they can come and learn and network and just be themselves authentically and just get resources and things like that. So that's currently in planning stages, but date is confirmed. So that will be on the 29th of March. Which is really exciting because it's our first big event together. But I know it will just be, sorry you can't come, but you know what I mean? It will be awesome. And then also obviously Branding 101 Cohort 4, which I'm just, when I say Cohort 4, it's even shocking to me because I remember when there wasn't even a Cohort 1. I remember when the Cohort wasn't even a word that was in the vocabulary when we were talking about it. So to be at Cohort 4 is incredible. Obviously, we've got the graduation coming up for Cohort 3 from last year, which will be amazing as well. And then just a few, different collaborations that I can't say right now, but when they come out, who knows, maybe a third time, then I'll let you know, right? But I think in terms of things that I want to happen, I'm really now getting into my education and workshop sort of vibe, because one thing that I keep seeing is that people are undereducated. They'll go through the stages of business and miss out the key parts. And then later down the line, once they've invested all this money and they've invested all this time, they only have to go back to the beginning anyway. So my mission essentially for this year is to just bring more brand education to the masses in a way that's actually actionable, things that are doable, things that you can immediately implement into your brand to make it better. Because yes, of course, you can go on Google and you can scour the internet for tens and thousands of hours to try and find this info. But wouldn't it be so much better if someone just packages it in a nice bow and says, here you go? That's what I'm trying to do. Because the education, it works. You know, I haven't built a brand that can collaborate with Sky and Halifax and all these amazing companies and get featured in World Federation of Advertisers by accident. There's a process to it. And all of the clients that I work with, even all the ladies on the programs, they will all tell you, like, no, branding makes a difference. So I think if more people are aware of how much branding makes a difference, their businesses will improve. I don't want to say it's a science, but it more or less is. Do you get what I mean? So definitely, I just want to kind of, just be a bit more out there, let people hear these things. Because also, I'm also doing it for the minorities, right? Majority of people who are brand designers or brand coaches are middle-aged white men. There's not really people who look like me. And so if people like me are trying to learn education, there is that disconnect sometimes between who you can relate to and what they'll understand. So I think this is my year for that.
Well,
so
that's little. Because I think like you said there, like it is like there's two things. I think one is, funny enough, something that a previous guest mentioned, Emma. She was saying that like for her the biggest thing is, like we said, like there's a lot of stuff that I guess because entrepreneur, like yes, you can do like business or entrepreneurship is like a uni degree, but there's stuff that you're not necessarily taught. So like she was saying, she shared actually on LinkedIn, there's a list of like people who are on the Forbes 30s under 30 list who have been like arrested. They've been sued.
Really?
Yeah, because they didn't have stuff from, like, they were doing stuff that, like financial, there was, like, maybe embezzlement, there was all this stuff. And I think, like, when she shared it, she, like, put this whole thing, and it was just, like, she emphasized on the episode and, like, mentioned in the article, like, the important thing is everyone sort of feels like, to be on a list like this, it's, like, great. Like you said, it's almost like these people are, like, on another level, like, to be it's just, like is the dream. But it's almost about understanding, like you said, like, do you have the basics on it? Do you know how to like do your self-assessment for HMRC?
Exactly.
Do you know how to like, do you know, like, if you say you've got like interns or you've got people working for you and you're not paying them, if it's counted as an unpaid internship, you could get into a lot of financial legal trouble. Like my mum does, she runs a business called James File Consultancy, and it's all about like data protection stuff. And like she was saying, like, a lot of people don't actually know about, like, there's certain things with data protection. If you use data in a certain way, you need to register with, I think it's called the, I need to get the name wrong. Is Information Commissioner's Office. So like if you use data in a certain way, you have to register with them. And that's something that people don't think they need to do. And again, like for a lot of these resources, it's like, booking a call, booking a session is completely free. And they have to run through it with you. They're happy to teach you about it. But it's when you don't do it, you found out. That's when the bill comes and it's like...
And then you're wishing, oh my gosh, it would have been so simple. But then there's the problem, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And I think this is why it's important for people like myself or like your mom or people who are in these different industries where you've got the knowledge to share to make yourself available. Because at the end of the day, I could sit here and look at all these brands who maybe haven't done this right or could be doing this better. But I can't fault them if they don't even know what to ask for, if they don't know what to look for. So I think this is why, though, if you see something like that, I know that we're in a cost of living crisis, and I know that sometimes you see the £20 mark on an event or a talk or a webinar, and it's a little bit off-putting. But sometimes I genuinely just think, take the risk, because if you learn something from there, that £20 that you spent on that ticket might just save you thousands of pounds down the line. And there is nothing more, I think, valuable than having knowledge, right? And the problem is, if you don't know what you don't know, you really don't know what to search. You don't know what to look for. So just try and absorb as much knowledge as possible, obviously from reputable sources. You know, do your research, make sure that the reviews are great or that they're registered with certain organizations if they need to be. But definitely, I think knowledge is power. Do you get what I mean? And I know it sounds cliche, but I don't know the things I know because I just sat there and said, no, I don't want any knowledge. Like, you have to go out and find it. And if you don't know where to find it, meet up with people who do. Try and expand your circle. Search certain terms, you know. But at this rate, it's like they're not going to look at you when you're embezzling and say, you know, you can't say ignorance. You can't plead ignorance. Ignorance is in absence of the law. So, yeah, I think in general, just try to get as much knowledge as possible. Because even this ICO thing, I only found out about that probably like 6 months ago. And I said, really? I said, I thought the cookie butter was enough. Like, I didn't know. But now I do know. It's like I can now go and implement that before anybody comes for me. So,
yeah. And it's definitely, like you said, like, it's one of those things where, like, it's a quick thing. There's loads of resources, like you said. Like, I've been following this, I think I mentioned this on the last episode, like, using tools like LinkedIn Learning, they have, like, a whole platform of, like, masterclasses on different stuff. Someone mentioned it, like I saw a post on Instagram saying it, like YouTube is now arguably an educational tool because there's so many free, like, even some people have like YouTube playlists which have like courses and describe all of this stuff. And they do explain like, oh, if you want to like, register with the ICO or like you want to register with Company's House, this is the process, this is what you need, this is how much.
Exactly.
And sometimes they will be like, oh, actually, there's a governmental change coming in. This is how it's going to impact you. Or, if you focus on a certain area in industry, like this potential, like, for example, there were probably people in America talking about for like a couple of hours when TikTok got banned. And it was like, okay, look, if you have a TikTok audience, like this is probably what you're going to need to be aware of if you want to move on to
100%. 100%.
So it's about like using these tools and like there was a lot of free, like you said, I do think, especially with something less free like YouTube, there is also a lot of misinformation. Sometimes the videos with the most views are not always the most accurate. But like you said, like it's about like reviewing it, looking at different resources.
100%.
And especially for a lot of people on YouTube, they do put in like thumbnails and stuff like, oh, this website, this website's got like more information, this website's like can share like more knowledge.
100%.
So it's always about like, use that. Like,
and I think as well, just to add to that, I think this whole topic speaks a lot about showing up for yourself. Because I think a lot of people don't understand that when you say yes, you need to show up. If you say, I want to be this entrepreneur, I see myself with this 7-figure business and I'm profiting and I get to go on holiday here and I get to do this, I get to do that. You need to be a certain type of person to obtain that. You can't be that person who shies away from knowledge. You can't be that person who doesn't invest in yourself. And the investment, I think sometimes when people hear invest in yourself, they automatically think money. But I also think time is a big thing of it. I've heard people say, I don't have time to, study that course, or I don't have time to watch that video. But you have time every day to watch Love Island at 9 o'clock like clockwork. So if you have time to watch Love Island, you have time to find a program, to find a course, to find something that actually is benefiting you and increasing your value. You have the time. It's just a lot of people don't place the same value on entertainment that they do on their personal growth because, unfortunately, personal growth takes the work. Sitting down and watching TV, that's easy, But I think at the end of the day, everybody who is successful in their own right, they did hard work along the way. And it's only because they did that hard work 4 or 5 years ago or whenever they did it, that now today they get to see the fruits of their labor. So show up, say yes and show up. It's not about anybody else, right? It's for yourself. If you say you're going to commit to something, commit to it. If you say, I want to learn more about this, go and learn about it. And quite frankly, because yes, you can pay for stuff, but there's also multitudes of free information, like you said. There is no excuse anymore. If you're blind, audiobook, right? If you're deaf, then you can read subtitles. If both, I don't know how it works. Braille, maybe? I don't know. But there's always a way that you can do things. It's just about, are your excuses going to be the reason why you never actually get to that next step? Because it happens. I knew people who I started my business journey with who, whilst I was doing stuff, it was excuses. I can't do this because I don't have enough money. Yeah, but do this instead then, because I didn't have any money. We was all broke. Do you get what I mean? But the excuses that you make today are shaping your future tomorrow. That's just how I view it. So 100% I agree with you. Use every resource that you have and just constantly show up for yourself. Yeah.
We're going to go on to the next question. So it's all looking about how like the branding space can change like regularly. And there might be, like you said, like changes in what's popular, what people like, what resonates with audiences. Even like clients might tell you like, oh, actually, we've seen that like people are more interested in this type of stuff or that. Maybe their competitors have like adopted a new design, which meant they're losing stuff. So it's a constantly changing space.
Yeah.
So how have your clients' needs and trends in the branding space changed recently? And how have you adapted your approach to stay ahead of the curve?
I think when it comes to branding, there isn't a day when something's not changing. Because one, I don't just work with one group of individuals. I work with people across several industries who have several different target audiences, who are interested in all these different things. Things will constantly change. Even in my industry, when I have to get customers or get clients, things change all the time. And I think one thing that you have to do is embrace that change. You can't be one of those people who says, nope, I've always done it this way. You've probably seen those shops when they started in the 1950s or something. I don't know the time, right? But they started ages ago and they don't want to go online or they don't want to go onto social media because that's not how we did it when we started. But that's how they're doing it now, you know? And I think sometimes you can keep your values without selling out, but you also have to understand that your customers might not be finding you the same way that they did 10 years ago, even a year ago, even 10 days ago. So I think you just have to be conscious that at some point you might need to change, and change isn't a bad thing. Like I was saying earlier with my name change, if it made sense for me to stay as Designed by Jujubeng for the rest of my life, I would have. But it doesn't, you know, the sort of clients that I want to obtain, the goals that I want to achieve, it doesn't make sense. So you have to pivot. So I think with the changes, you have to be prepared to make a change accordingly. And in terms of staying ahead of the curve, research, knowledge, right? It's just what we were talking about. I could sit there and do absolutely no research, gain absolutely no knowledge and just say, well, I know how to design a logo, so I'm going to keep using the same things that I learned 4 or 5 years ago and apply it today. But that's not how it works. New softwares come out, new tools come out, new design styles come out. All of these things change. And it's part of my job as a designer and a coach to make sure that I'm finding this information where I can, whether it means looking at other people in my industry, whether it means looking at the industries that I might work most frequently with. You know, there isn't really a trick to how you can stay ahead of the curve, because this imaginary curve that no one can see, we don't know what it is, right? But you can do your best to make sure that you're staying as, you know, close to ahead of it as possible. If I have a client that comes up to me tomorrow and says, actually, people in our industry are leaning towards this more now, then that's not something I'm going to ignore. I'm going to take it in. And then once I've done with that client, then I go onto my Mac and I start researching. So, yeah, I think it's just all about research, because whether you like it or not, in every industry, things are going to change. I don't think there's one industry that has probably stayed the same through and through. You know, can you think of one? Well, then, do you get what I mean? Things change all the time. So, yeah, I think it's just about being open, understanding that that change will happen and it can happen. And when it does happen, embrace it. No one said that you have to be 10 steps ahead, because when you realize there's a change, you can catch up, you know. But I think you just have to be open to it and be prepared to pivot when necessary. Because I think, especially in my field, I get a lot of people who have already started brands, but maybe didn't build that brand in the way that actually works towards their goals. But they built this logo on Canva that they absolutely love, Jeffrey. They'll say, no, but I love it. I love the watercolor behind the text that I can't really read. I love everything. And sometimes I sit with these clients and I say, I know you love it, but are you selling to yourself or are you selling to other people? And then when they hear they're selling to other people, well, then you can't always do what you love. And that's a change that you need to do. If you want, print that logo that you made out and stick it on your wall. That's the compromise I can make. But for your actual clientele, they're requiring something different of you. And because they're requiring something different, you can either choose to stay the same. And quite frankly, unless you're paying yourself millions, I don't know where the millions is coming from because we're not getting clients, but unless you are paying yourself millions, you've got all of this audience out here that you're giving away to your competitor because you don't want to make a change for the betterment of your company, you know? So I just feel like people need to be prepared to change. Just because something has always been done one way doesn't mean that it's the right way. Doesn't mean that you have to continue that way. And I think this is something that people need to to learn. Sometimes it's difficult to let go. It is. But if letting go means that you get better on the other side, seems like a no-brainer. So, yeah.
Definitely. And I think, like you said, like, there isn't, like, there's two things. So one, like you said, there isn't one brand or even like one industry that's like the same it's been throughout history in life. You can talk about like the automobile industry, how that's changed, even like branding. Like, I think, I don't know if you like, people told you, but like everyone, when most people think about branding, they think about like Mad Men and like how that like showing like branding. And like there was a really cool clip that they talk about like Heinz, and it was literally you said. So I'm not sure if you see, if you
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I haven't.
So basically, they were pitching to Heinz, and Heinz wanted them to do a marketing campaign, and they were just like, cool. So all it literally was it was a picture with like chips, and then had a bit of ketchup added to it, and it just said like. They just had like, just add Heinz. And they were just like, no, this seems pretty simple. Like, we don't really like it. You know, you can just like matches us. You know, we're a family brand. We love Heinz. And the main character was just like, no, like, it is that simple.
Yeah.
It's showing like, when you add Heinz,
Everything changes. Everything changes.
And people are thinking in their heads like, cool, like, it's simple, but it's so much. So maybe I should add Heinz. And like, you can look at it now, like, Heinz is it's recognized in many places. It's stocked in like restaurants of all kinds. I'm talking about like your pubs to like a fancy
100%. They're trying to make counterfeit Heinz. Like they're trying to refill those ketchup bottles with anything because they understand that power of that brand. But I think it's interesting in its sense because it's like sometimes you will have an idea and you will be so adamant on that idea, but look at it from another perspective. Like I think sometimes seeking counsel from people. I'm not saying seek counsel from just anybody, but seeking counsel from people who get it, I think is so, so, so important. There are so many decisions that I will go to my partner, my sister, my mum, you know, people who are still in the business space, because I know that I'm not just building this legacy on my own, you know, and I think sometimes we can get caught up in, it's my idea, it's my idea, it's my idea. It is your idea, but it takes a village to raise a child, right? The same way it takes a village to build a business sometimes. Those networks that you make, they're networks for a reason. They're going to help you in one way or the other. Use them. Because imagine if they didn't listen to this guy who said, just add Heinz, because they said, no, we know our brand better than anybody else. We know what to do. Then they would have probably put a picture of some families and all this kind of stuff, and it wouldn't have the same gusto to it, you know? So, yeah, I think that's another even important thing to mention that, you know, seek counsel when it comes to your business. Don't be afraid of asking questions. Obviously, use common sense, use reasoning. If someone tells you take out £50,000 loan and you don't need it, don't say yes. But you can gain a lot from other people. Like even our conversations when we speak, this episode, last episode, I take things from you. I'm open to hearing what you're saying. I'm curious about what you're saying because it just gives me more knowledge, you know? So I think everybody should probably have that mentality, not just in business, in life.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's the same like you mentioned, like the second I was going to say, it was even like you just mentioned there, it's like understanding that you, like customers will see your like business and your brand. So like I knew like the biggest, so I've went to a branding workshop and they were talking about like, people sometimes always also don't think about the accessibility of their logos because they're like, oh, you know, like you said, like, I'm going to use this really cool font with this background because it looks really sick. Or like, they're like, block out certain letters and remove certain things. So it's like, you know, it's like jigsaw pieces.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, it might look really cool, but have you thought about like, you know, you want people to see it, associate it with you. You know, people can see this. Some people, whether it's to do with sort of like a physical disability or mental health, like they might not be able to like recognize this or
100%.
And it's like
100%.
understanding that you have to be that level of accessible if you want to reach what wide audience.
And you know what? I think that brings even an interesting topic because I had a client come up to me the other day. I did sign them just to premise this story, right? But they came up to me, wanted a quote for their brand identity. I gave them the quote and they said, basically, ain't no way. And I said, okay, that's fine. But usually the conversation would end there because if you don't like my prices, that's fine, right? But it's important for me to also have that conversation with you, right? Because what they didn't understand is that I'm not just making you a logo. Anyone can make a logo. right? But I'm building you a brand. I'm building you a brand because I know your audience and I know your strategy and I know all the things that are coming into this brand. I know that I can't use this color on top of this color because certain people won't be able to read it. I know that this font I'm using because the other font that you would prefer doesn't actually communicate the messaging that you want it to communicate. I know that when it comes to the logo, I'm not just making you one, I'm making you multiple in different variations. And I know how each variation can be used. I'm creating you guideline documents to teach you how to use your brand and to make it so that anybody who now uses your brand knows how to use it. You're not just paying for the finished result. And I think this is sometimes where people see things like graphic design and they think, why is it so expensive? It's so expensive because there is years and years of knowledge, things that you wouldn't even consider that goes into it. Most people don't know if you make your logo on Canva, you can't ever trademark it. You know, if you get it done by an independent designer, there you go. The trademark can be yours. But simple things like that, people don't realize. So you're not just paying for, some fancy colors and then, a font and a logo. You're paying for the whole process to make sure that your brand stands the test of time, to make sure that it's adaptable and that you can use it in everywhere. No one wants to build a brand and then a year later you have to change it because it's not working, right? Rebrands are fine, right? Because that's just updating things as time goes on. But you don't want to have to change your brand because it's broken. You want to change your brand because it's time to level up. But a lot of people have broken brands because instead of actually speaking to someone who was more knowledgeable on the subject, they said, let me do it myself. I just want to save myself a couple bucks. But as much as I understand that, I also feel like it's important to make sure that we're not skimping out on certain things. Yes, there are certain things that we might go to £1 shop for, but there are also things that we would never buy from the £1 shop because we understand that, okay, if you put the value into this, I'm probably going to get this from it. Your business is no different. You know, when you're acquiring things like a logo, it's not just a logo. You know, your colors are not just colors. Your fonts are not just fonts. Your messaging isn't just messaging. And I think it's really important to understand really what it is you're doing. But this is why I wouldn't do my own accounts. That's why I hire my mom as an accountant, because I know that she would know things about the accounts that I just don't, and if I want something done properly, I'd rather do it right once than do it cheap twice, because then I'll buy twice, So, yeah, I think it's important really to just really figure out what it is that you're doing and why it's important and why graphic designers wouldn't be in business if we weren't needed. Brand designers wouldn't make money from building brands if there wasn't anything that goes into it. But there's millions of businesses, more than millions. What makes you stand out when you've got a template from Canva that 10,000 other people downloaded just today? It doesn't make you stand out. And if they can't even read what's on the logo, well, you're just watercolor. That's it. So, yeah.
No, 100%. And I think it's like you said, like, it's almost like being against that chain. Because
Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get you started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live appointments when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't right for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at an affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/pickupthemic. I've also linked them down below in the description. So again, that's betterhelp.com/pickupthemic, MIC, and start your journey today.
organization before. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut, so I don't use that. So I know I've worked in somewhere I will preface it's not my current workplace, so I know they also done a rebound.
Yeah.
But like a previous place that I've worked, they would change their branding every 2 years. And like, it was one of those things where like it wasn't even like the logo would change. Like if you know me, you know what I'm talking about. But the people wouldn't like. It wasn't like anyone requested it. It was literally just like
It wasn't even needed.
it wasn't needed.
Yeah.
And it would never be like. And I think this was the biggest thing that annoyed me because the first time it happened, I didn't even know this was a regular cake. When it happened, I was like, we went from one shade of blue. This is like a lighter shade of blue.
And
All that changed was the tagline changed.
okay.
The logo was the same. T-shirt, ultimately the design of the T-shirt, all this stuff,
So the same.
only thing that changed was the tagline
Mm-hmm.
and the color.
Okay.
When I tell you that, like, because it's every 2 years, all of this, like, they would stock up on all of this stuff. So it'd be like T-shirts, pens. What was about this? Guess what? So after the end of that 2 years, it got to a point where, like, so the first time it happened, I was like, they were just like, cool, and like I had like a T-shirt, and they was like, look, you can just keep it, like, it's not relevant to us. Like, if you work for us, don't wear it unless you've got if you've got the new one, wear the new one. If you don't, wear it on.
Yeah.
As they phased it out, like, I remember one time they asked me to work, and I was like, cool. They were just like, yeah, we're clearing out this cupboard. It's got all this old branding stuff. And I was like, sick. So what's happening with it? They were just like, yeah, it's just going to bin. It's not relevant branding. And like, I know other people within our organization were just like, oh no, like, why don't we, we can leave it out. Like, if it's pens, like, students always need pens. So just leave it in like each room and say, if you need a pen for your lecture, like, take it as a pen. If you're doing a written exam, we'll put it maybe in the room so you can have a pen. No, they're just like, it's all branding, can't be used. Oyster card cases, I knew people that would like, so they would work in like schools and stuff. So they were just like, oh, we can give out these bags and pens and stuff at schools. Some of the schools they were working with were like primary school. So these people, by the time these people even get to uni, the brand may completely change. I was like, no, we can't just give it out to schools and stuff. It's not relevant. Even it got to the point where one person I know, she was giving it to like both shelters because she was just like, oh, if we just like fold it inwards, we don't even need it for branding. Like, we can just give it, sometimes local shelters say they need like materials for start. She was just like, yeah, let's just give it to them. She was like, no, I can't do that. Because we don't want our like it to be associated with us. And she was just like, but this is like you said, you don't want it. Like, I'm trying, like, people are just like, this is ultimately waste. So I was like, oh yeah, if you want to take like pens, bags, oyster card cases, you can take it. Then I was like, ultimately, it's going in the bin. And when I found out, like, when I tell you it costs a lot of money, like, they're all, like I said, I won't bet them out because I'll take money where I can get it. But like, all I heard, I was shocked because I was just like, the amount of money that went into it and like, they're like, this. And it wasn't, like I said, they also did, funnily enough, do another rebrand, but like, shocked. But the second one, I was like, it made sense. They had a bit of it. So the name did change. Again, the color changed. But it was one of those things where, like, the first one happened, and then when I found out it was like a regular every 2 years change, and like how much money everything costs because everything's getting changed. You're then maybe in the process of finding out about this change, you've already printed like loads of merch already. All of this merch, you're then being told, oh, sorry, they can't use it anymore. And yeah, I remember just hearing that. I was just like,
see, it doesn't. Okay, the one thing that I can say from this story is that I respect the fact that when the brand changed, they said nothing else is valid. Because I feel like that is one thing that you should do when you are rebranding, right? You don't rebrand and then still use aspects of the old brand because it messes up your brand consistency.
100%.
But that's where I stop. That's where I stop in my agreeances. Because why are you rebranding? Firstly, I think this is one of the questions that I have to ask people quite frequently. They come to me, oh, I want to rebrand. Firstly, a rebrand and a refresh are two different things, right? But if you are rebranding or you are refreshing, there needs to be a reason why. And it can't just be because 2 years have passed. When you're rebranding, there are a few reasons why you might rebrand. Either maybe your target audience has changed. Maybe your mission, vision, and values have changed. So your overall strategy. Maybe your brand positioning have changed. So an example of that would be take Dunkin' Donuts, for example. They're now just Dunkin'. because they are not focused on their donuts. They needed to position themselves differently in their industry so that they're not just looked at as a donut brand, because now they're doing coffees, now they're doing all of this extra stuff. I don't really know what they sell. But do you get what I mean? There is a repositioning there. But some people just rebrand because, no, I don't really like the brand anymore. But then do you know what that tells me? It tells me that your brand wasn't created with any sort of strategy in the first place. Because for you to wake up and just not like your brand anymore, that means it wasn't created because of, your audience. It wasn't created because of the strategy. It wasn't created because of your values. Because unless those things are changing, why do you just wake up one day and don't like it? Probably because you rushed to judgment and just made something for the sake of making it. You picked colors that you liked at the time, and now your favorite colors changed, so much your business. You used a font that you thought, yeah, this is cute. And now you looked at someone else's brand and saw a font that they use, and now you're saying, I like that one instead. You have to do things with process. And again, I know I keep talking about this is why brand designers exist, but we exist because we don't just create things out of nothing. Well, we do create things out of nothing, but we don't create it for no reason. There's always a strategy behind it. The idea is that, take Heinz, for example. If you trace Heinz back to the first day of their inception, you will still be able to see a consistent flow. Of course, they've done refreshes here and there, maybe spruced up their font, but you can still tell it's the same brand. Maybe used a different type of imagery, but you can still see it's the same brand. Maybe even target audience could have changed slightly, or the positioning, where they sell. These things could have changed, but you can still tell it's the same brand. What I don't like to see is this every couple months or every 2 years, you look different, because it already takes people a lot of, reoccurring times to recognize you anyway. But all you're doing, if you're changing your brand that consistently, you're losing your credibility, and you are the one causing it. Honestly, people worry about bad reviews. You don't need bad reviews when you're changing your brand every 5 seconds, because no one remembers you anyway. So as much as I appreciate the fact that, yes, they said, if we're in with the old, then we're out with the old, then we're in with the new, right? As much as I appreciate that, it's also like it seems to be, I'm glad we didn't say the name, but there's a lack of reasoning there. And it's not just them. It's loads of people. It is loads of people. So if you're changing something about your brand, don't just change it for now. You have to make sure that it's going to be future-proof, because great brands, the whole idea of building a brand is about building that trust, building that recognition, that consistency. If you go and change it every single second, what happens? Do you get what I mean? So yeah, that's very wild. Maybe they should come over and talk to me so we can make them a brand that's actually standing the test of time. But no, all jokes aside, I think this is actually quite a common problem. It is a common problem. And I think if more people knew about it, hence why more education needs to be around, then maybe people would do things correctly from the start, instead of just falling into this trap of kind of ruining your own brand all by yourself.
100%.
No.
But yeah, we've come to the last question. I think this is probably the most important one. Cool. A bit tough one.
Okay.
Looking back over the past year, first episode came out January 2024, and now January 2025.
Yes.
What's one lesson or piece of advice you'd like to share with entrepreneurs who are working towards consistent growth in their business?
I actually think we've covered it. And I think it would be the whole thing of say yes and show up for yourself. Because this is a lesson that I think every year I double down on, and I understand even more why it's important. Because when you say yes and you show up for yourself, there will be growth, right? If you are looking to be who you say you want to be, you can't say, take people who want to work out, for example, they say, oh, I want to lose X amount of weight. You can't say you want to lose X amount of weight and not do anything to get there, right? With everything that you do that you want growth in, you have to make a decision. And it's not enough to just say, I'm going to do this. You actually have to do it. And I think that is probably one of the things, even if it's that you commit to one thing for 1 minute a day. If you do that one thing for 1 minute every single day for a year, then you will be better. You might not be miles better, but who's asking for you to be miles better? The idea is that you grow, and growth is not measured by, oh, you must do this. If you've grown, you've grown. You're going forward. You're moving towards your direction that you need to be in. So I would definitely just say yes and show up for yourself, whatever that looks like. Probably you need to identify what that looks like first, because I think a lot of people probably don't even know.
Yeah.
But identify what showing up for yourself looks like and then do it. Do it if you're scared, do it if you're tired, do it if you're frustrated, do it if you're annoyed, if you're angry, if you're whatever you're feeling, just do it. Because again, the people who were just doing it 5 years ago, they have growth now, and growth can be painful. Growth isn't always easy. Growth is sometimes very emotional. I'm a crier. I cry for everything. During my growth periods, oh my gosh, don't look at me. Because I'm literally sometimes it's just like, it's so tough. But that's what growth is. Do you get what I mean? It's not always going to be a seamless ride. No one said that the journey to being a business owner or an entrepreneur or success in general was going to be easy, but it's worth it. So if you keep showing up for yourself every single day, whether you feel like it or not, even if you do that 1% each day, you've shown up for yourself, right? So that would be my takeaway. Just show up for yourself, say yes, and show up for yourself.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
100%.
I really forgot to say this during it, but if you do want to ask me any questions, you can. It can be about how big I'm doing since our last episode. But yeah,
you've asked me about my year. I want to know about your year. Because I follow you on LinkedIn. I see what you're doing. I see, you getting this award. I see that you're nominated for this. But I actually want to know. I've tried to stay off your socials for a second so that I could actually come here and hear it from you. So how's your year been?
Yeah, it's been good. So last year, January, what's happened since? So, like you said, last year was a lot of like nominations or shortlisting for awards. Like some of them were very unexpected. And then the biggest one that comes to mind was actually there were two. So one was in March. So it was the Black Tech Achievement Awards UK. It's hosted by UK Black Business, and it was very much like a last minute thing because someone that I know who works at UK Black Business, we met, and she was just like, "Oh, I think you should apply for this award." And I don't really know. We're not really a tech based business. I don't know if we would qualify. She was like, "Look, you never know if you don't apply."
Yeah.
I was like, "Cool." I applied for it, and I got shortlisted for it. And being a finalist for that in general, I was like, "Look, man, I was not even expecting to be." Let alone that win. So being a finalist for that was incredible. And I think the next one that was really impactful was, so it's called I need to get it out because every time I tell people, I did not remember the acronym, but it is called the Multicultural. Oh wait, I am saying this is. Oh wait, good. Minute for the website to load. Multicultural Business and Community Champions Award. So this again was one that I had heard. I think either I'd heard someone that I'd seen saw LinkedIn was talking about this award. So I was keep an eye out, put an application in.
Yeah.
Again, a bit last minute, put an application in, and both Picard and Mike and myself were shortlisted. The biggest achievement for me with that, especially as a founder, was in my category. Yeah, there was one of those things that I didn't find out until the weekend before it happened.
Yeah.
But the founder of Gymshark, I think it's Ben something, he was in the same category. So to make that was wild. Again, I didn't win that. But I was like, it doesn't matter. I was like, it doesn't matter. I took that. So because I was just because it's one of those ones where it's not about just putting it out there. It's not also about so they get shortlisted by, I think, a panel of judges, then they do a community vote. So even to be in the top 5 of a community vote, where you got someone who he's got a shop in Oxford Street. It's damn. I see a lot of award nominations and I think the biggest thing to say on that is if you see an award and you think you can apply, just put an application in. Even if it's the same day.
Yeah.
Think about it, review it. Basic advice I tell people is every applicable, not every, but most applications I've applied for, I save what I put. So if I'm applying for something similar, or even if I'm applying the next year, I'm okay, I know what I included last year. Yeah, it's different this year. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. We did a lot of collaborations. So we worked with an organization called System. We supported, so we actually did a collab event together here at Somerset House. All on the link between creativity and the field of STEM. So they had a panel. I got one of my interns to interview with their co-founder to interview 2 guests. we got 2 interns over the summer, which was incredible. So Bruno as a summer internship scheme, first time that we did that. There was a lot of learning curves with that. But I think the biggest thing is one of the interns, if you're watching, shout out Josh. But he like went in and the person who runs the program was like, oh yeah, he's told me he's not really interested in like a traditional 9 to 5. He wants to like explore like what being a creative and like being in that space can look like. Yeah. And he told me like, oh, not even going into the interview, it's just like, yeah, I'm more of a photographer than a videographer, but I'm happy to learn. So I was like, cool, I'll teach you about videography stuff. Like you do photography, we do photography sometimes at events.
Yeah.
He was just like, I don't need a backboard. If you wanted me to do headshots, I will do headshots for you at any event. Just like give me good lighting and I could do it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I've seen your headshots. You showed me his portfolio. I'm like, let's put it to work. So multiple events that we did last year, like multiple events we supported, either I would do the headshots if he couldn't make it, or he would do them.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, cool, like these are photos, just edit it, get back to me when you're like ready, and then we can like share with the people that did it. And like these photos are amazing. People like who we've got to, they're just like, so this is actually he's doing. So yeah, and then it's like no backdrop. I was like, yeah, like literally, you just like walk around with the camera taking. And I was just like, come in, if you need it, like you're more than welcome to speak. So I think it's that. It was like seeing him grow, especially like we only worked together directly for 3 months, and then he's like agreed to like help out where he can.
Yeah.
But like I told him like the biggest thing I'm proud about you is like you went in head first. You like learned about videography, you learned about video editing. So I was like, you've now got a portfolio because now you can show you've also supported like a lot of his events before were about like left hits and they were like small sports based. But I was like, now you can show you've actually like gone to people's events, you've done interviews, you've done headshots. And I was like, all the headshots that you did, like I was like, I know people that would love, like I said, it's also, I told them as well, like, I was like, it's an incentive for people to go to events. People will go to events if you say like, oh yeah, you're going to get a free headshot.
I would be right there.
It's
100%.
And I was just like, yeah, that was incredible. What else happened? Towards the end of last year, I won't say, I don't want to talk about this yet until like things are confirmed, but it was an idea that like came out of a lot of discussions with like different people that were working on. So like you said about preparing for this year has been a lot about thinking about how that idea can be implemented and stuff and what it look like, which has been really incredible. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I think, well, I should have said this first. The biggest thing we celebrated is 3 years of Pick Up the Mic. So it was really great because on 2 aspects. Because one, it was the first time that we had done like a big celebration. Like usually for the first few years, it had been like myself and my like teammates that worked with directly. But this was the first time we did an external event. We brought people to someone's house and we were just like, cool, let's just like the live panel discussion all about Pick Up the Mic, where it had been, my favorite episodes, what I liked about podcasting. And that was really incredible because it was like seeing all these different people that like some people I knew from like previous jobs, some people I knew from uni, some people I knew from Pick Up the Mic, and like seeing all of them like interact and connect was like, to me, it was really inspirational. And then I'm seeing like, I guess 3 years worth of work come together. Just super like, it was, I loved it. And yeah, I think the final thing was last year was the first year, well, with 2 things. So one, it was the first year that we got like regular, probably well, I don't consistent, but regular pay for like different work that we did, which was incredible. And I think also what was incredible was I also, so like people who like know me, I've been saying like for the longest time, I wanted to do like, I want to be interviewed for podcasts, but I do not want to necessarily do it on my own podcast. Cause I was like, it's easy. I can be, but I was just like, I'd like to be like asked to be on some. And like last June, like there were 4 different, I think 3 to 4 different podcasts that I was interviewed. And like 2 of them, 2 of them were people that I have no prior connection to. One of them just reached out to me on LinkedIn and said like, hey, I saw that you did an interview with this person. I really love what you do in your work. Like, can I be on your podcast? And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, I'll be on your podcast. I was like, do you want to be on my podcast? And like, that started something. That's a kid. Another person, so I did a speaking event at UAL, and they were just like, oh, like, you know, if you want to like just talk about your journey, it'll be really brief. I'll like dig it. Someone in the audience, he said like, he went in thinking, oh, like, this is going to be a traditional like founder's journey. It's going to be very like official, all of this. And then I told him like, oh yeah, one of our like slogans as a business is from this like video game. And he was just like, when he said that, he was like, I can't discuss it, but all that. Yeah. And we kept in touch, and he was just like, "Yeah, do you want to be on my podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'd love to." Like,
Can I just quickly say a point on that as well? I feel like when we were talking about this whole thing of being an entrepreneur and stuff like that, I think another teaching, I know you said one, but another teaching is just be yourself. Because I think a lot of people are trying to be this image of that LinkedIn babe, or do you get what I mean? That person who walks in, just show up as you are, because your personality it makes you unique automatically. And I think the things that people can resonate with and the things that people connect with you on, they're not going to connect with you on them if you're trying to pretend to be something you're not. And I think even when you said that about like the video game stuff, I'm saying there, I'm like, yeah, Jeffrey, do you get what I mean? But somebody else might be like, let me not put too much of myself into this conversation because they've asked me to speak about my founder's journey and it has to be very, just typical. But no one's typical. Do you know what I mean? We all are on our own journey. And yeah, that just made me think of that. So
100% I agree. And I feel like you said, it's like that like comfortability. Because like you said, like I would like even, Mary celebrated like 2 years of our business, and I ended up speaking to your other sister about gaming for like a while. And I was like, look, man, I can talk about gaming for forever. And I was like, but I also like anytime I do like talks or workshops and stuff like, I also know that like some people going into it just like, yeah, this is going to be a traditional like X, Y, and Z to do all of this. So I like injecting like humor and funny stuff. Like people who see like last year also was the first year I did mentoring at 2 events. First year I even got a mentor through a program at my workplace. So I've been mentoring someone, and through all of that, like the biggest thing that I've said is like, there should be that level of relatability. So in my workshops, I was like, look, I'm just giving you forewarning. This is going to have a lot of gifts. I'm going to have a lot of jokes. It's going to be a lot of funny stuff. And I was like, look, it's not going to be super serious. It's going to be pretty chill. And even like with my mentee, like I told her like, look, like whatever you want to do, if you want to learn about like what I do with Pick Up the Mic, if you want to learn what I do with my part-time role, if you want to learn about any of the previous stuff I've worked on or what I'm like, I was like, let me know. Like if you want to know about video editing, we can do a mentoring session on video. Yeah. And I just feel like he said, it's like being relatable, 100%. Like not being like
100%
rigid. And even with so sometimes there's this like yearly festival on. Like, it's all about, like, the creative industry. So 18 to 30-year-olds, you want to learn about, like, the creative industries. It's a 2-day festival. And I got to mentor for the one they did in June. I did it for 2 days. And I was like, to me, I was like, oh, I don't know if people, like, everyone says, like, people are tired of podcasting. So I was like, I don't know if people are going to come, they're going to speak to me. And then also, you sort of, like you said, like, sometimes you get in your head because you're just like, you see other people. And I was like, seeing people's bios, and, like, some person works in BBC. I was like, damn, people are like, cheering for this guy for ages. And like people are coming over and they were just like, oh yeah, I saw you talk about like storytelling. So like, how do you do storytelling and stuff like this? And I think the two stories that really impacted me from that was there was this one guy, he literally just like rocked up on the day, he didn't know about the event. But he was like really big into youth. I want to start my own podcast. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I was giving him advice, and he was just like genuinely, he was like, wasn't even planning to come to it. It was like spur of the moment, to the event. Why don't I come to you? And he was like, this has been so beneficial. And the second one was, there was this other person, and he was just like, I'm literally trying to get into YouTube. Like, YouTube to me was like a bit complicated, and seeing all this like different advice and stuff. And I was like, oh, like I've got this like app that I found that like they break down YouTube for you. It's like YouTube, they tell you about like, they do masterclasses, they do videos. I was like, it's a free app. Like a lot of the stuff
I need it. Free. I need it, by the way.
vidIQ. I will show you after.
Thank you.
But yeah, like, a lot of the stuff they do is like, so I started just with their YouTube channel, and I was like, this is really good. Like they break down policy changes in YouTube. They broke down like monetization on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. So who pays you the most? How does meaning across all those platforms work? They spoke about like you said, like how do you build your community on YouTube? They have like a lesson plan. So you do like, I think it's like 3 lessons a day. It's like, okay, so we're going to break down from coming up with the concept of a YouTube video to the thumbnail, to the descriptions, the title. They even give you ratings on your like YouTube thumbnails and titles and stuff. Yeah, so it's like, okay, so how do we feel like this, like how complicated it is? Because they say like, be aware that like if your thumbnail's super populated or isn't populated enough, it can affect how people engage with this. You don't add like loads of text and images and stuff like this, but you also then don't want the title be like super confusing or super long. And they also said, bear in mind that now, like, YouTube isn't just for like laptops and PCs. People watch YouTube on their phone, on their TVs. So they were even talking about like where you position stuff on and like the thumbnails you use. They said, bear in mind, someone might watch this YouTube video through their phone. So I had to now think about, is the thumbnail going to be interesting in a way that someone's going to see and be like,
Exactly.
this is what I want to learn.
100%.
So that was like what was really interesting. And like the first one was just like, yeah, this has been like amazing. Like I didn't know that I'd be getting all this. I was like, yeah, like I literally only found out about this like this year. So it was like, and so they get this much for free. Like, yeah, they got like a pay plan where you can get like dedicated experience. Yeah. I was just like for free. Like, I'm like, technically.
When we said resources, there are resources.
And I was just like, for what they get, because even when they were just like, yeah, we rate your videos, we tell you how good your description is. I was like, okay, you probably don't have to pay for that. They were just like, no, it's completely free.
And do you know what? And I love the fact that you're saying this, because there are some people who have been saying, I want to start a YouTube channel for so many years. I'm one of them. Okay. And so I'm taking my own advice. That's why I said I need the app and I need to start, because it is easy, right? So I'm part of it. Okay. I take accountability for that. When it comes to YouTube, I have slacked. But even just hearing you say that, now I'm like, okay, cool. There is the resources that I can go to. Yeah.
And like,
that's awesome.
I think the biggest thing was like, for me, that I really liked was when they mentioned like both breaking down like YouTube monetization, because I think a lot of people, like for me, I didn't know until watching their channel. They were just like, oh, yeah, YouTube takes like 40% of whatever you charge. So if you charge for like, if you have a channel membership and you charge like £1, YouTube's already taken 40p. Whereas they're saying like stuff like Patreon, it's customizable. So depending on how much you charge, depends on how much is taken. So they were saying, if you are going to have a membership like option, think about like being on Patreon more than being on YouTube. They were just like, yes, being on YouTube, it means that everything's managed on one platform. But they said, if you're prepared to lose like 40% of your content, like 40% of your like cut, then just be aware of that. They even were talking about, so like people, they were just like, oh yeah, we're YouTube monetized. We've got like, I think over like 100,000 subscribers, and maybe like close to 1 million. But they were just like, people think they must be bringing in so much money. They were just like, no, like through YouTube, they got paid, I don't know, like, I think they showed for one video, it's like, maybe like 20 to, either like, this is a wide range, but like $20 to $100. They were just like, within a year, because with YouTube monetization, it's very much, what are you going to say, 1,000? That was about to be like, and they were just like, it's not a unique thing. So they were saying their main revenue stream is not even like YouTube monetization. They use like affiliate links. They, like I said, they have a paid thing. So like if you want to have a personalized coach, you can pay for a personalized coach. They also have an AI tool that will analyze so there is a free one. There's a more advanced one that you can pay for, which will like analyze your YouTube analytics over the last 30 days. So it'll be like, hey, based on the videos you put out, this is what's like been the best content. You know, we've seen your content's been seen by this age group, by this gender, you know, this watched at this time. And we think based on all of this, you should focus on content around it. And it will do it for YouTube Shorts. It will do it for like long form video, short form video. And like, I told people like, all this stuff is free. So they then explaining even like, oh yeah, you don't get a lot of money through YouTube monetization. To me, is like something obviously they don't have to do. Like they could just pretend even was just doing it. Yeah. I was just like, this is incredible. This is like really good knowledge. So yeah, I'll tell people like vidIQ, we also are like, we've got an affiliate link with them, but I specifically tell people like, look, I've used it. Even before like, so they did like a discount. And that's another thing. They also do a lot of discounts. So the advanced AI tool, I think they did it for like, it's typically maybe like $100-something or like $150 or maybe $250. They did like a massive sale on it, and for a year it was like it was a lot cheaper than it usually is. And I was like, I'm probably not going to pay for the coach. I don't feel like cheaper enough for the coach. I was like, for the AI tool, like I want to know my analytics. I want to know like what my audience is watching and understand my YouTube analytics more.
That's awesome.
So I tell people like that's been a game changer. But yeah, I guess in summary, that's been like what the last year has been. It's been a busy year. Last year like was a lot. But I think it was good. Like at the end of it, I was just like a lot happened that like I wasn't expecting. So like you said, like I told people like you might be seeing me posting about these awards and like speaking stuff. I thought a lot of this stuff was not planned. Like it was very much last minute applications. Like I love that. Like even one of them, which we're gonna find out in 2 months' time, which was the Potential Unlocked Awards. Like that, I almost generally, so I got shortlisted, which was great. I was like, cool, sick. I could almost, that one also was a surprise because I didn't really market myself for that. I don't know, maybe did one post on my LinkedIn page, didn't really share it anywhere else. And then when I found out I was shortlisted, I was like, how? I didn't blog it anywhere. I didn't really do much.
It's greatness, right?
Yeah. And then so they were just like, okay, cool. After being shortlisted, you need to like submit more information for the judges. So like answer these few questions. But one of those ones, I was like, I thought I'm supposed to do something today. And I was like at work, and I was like, yeah, man, I feel like, and I was like, I feel like I should do this all. Let me check. And I was like, oh snap, I need to like, so, yeah. So even like that, like I tell people, like sometimes it's just like I've got an application in, like I've applied for stuff, whether it's funding, whether it's awards.
Yeah.
Like you never like, and I've told people like I might have won all the awards that I applied for last year, but I was like, I got shortlisted for a lot that I was never expecting.
And I think that's the thing, because it's like the worst that can happen is you'll be in the exact same space. It's not going to make you less off if you apply for something and don't get it. You will literally just be where you are. Do you get what I mean? So take the risks, like just do things, go out of your comfort zone. And the thing is, you're even getting practice. Maybe the first way you applied for something wasn't great, but now you've got the added confidence and you've got the know-how of how it works. And maybe you've spoken to someone who's done it before, so then your second one's better. Like, just do things, just start. Literally. That's really awesome. Well done. Congrats.
I think one final thing I'll say before we wrap up is, like we were saying about like branding. So I think one thing that I tell people, like even through my workplace, that we had a masterclass with Axel Argato, so someone from their marketing team. And before that session, I think, and everyone's talked about like custom segments and like who your customer is. I was like, to me at least, you're going like, I'm going in with, everyone says you have to have one target audience. That's your audience. Can't have anything more than one. Doesn't work like that. But it was really interesting to hear from the person from Axel Argato, because she was just like, no, actually, it's like, for them at least as a brand, they have two, and they've named it. They separated it. It has specific demographics. They specifically say like if you are like from one group, you are younger person. It's like, where do they shop? How do they find information? How do they make their fashion choices? And then they've got their older demographics. So it's like, how do they do it? Where do they shop? What parts of like in London, they were talking about what parts of London do they get to? Where do they buy their coffee? Where do they do this? Where do they do that? And I was just like, oh, actually, you can have more than one. And then there was even hearing her talk about it, she was like, we actually act like the in-between between these two segments. You got like one group here, and then it's almost like a feedback loop, because it's like, so someone in the younger demographic, as they grow older, will, and in their vision, using Axel Argato, then feed into the older group, and they'll feel like that loyalty and consistent. But then also they were saying sometimes it might also be like a mindset. So someone might be a bit older, but they might see themselves still young and be like, actually, I'm gonna still get my information from these sorts or visit exactly. So it's almost like a constant feedback loop, because you're just like, it doesn't matter if your customer is in one segment or another, they're like constantly getting fed, and it's like, you don't have to have that one group. So
do you know what? I even like that, because I think a lot of people won't just have one specific group, because even if someone says, I think that firstly, I think people are very broad when it comes to their target audiences. And the issue there is that you're targeting everyone. So technically you're targeting no one, right? But there will be certain groups where they have overlapping factors. And where those things overlap, you're able to target similar people at once. Or maybe in the parts where they don't overlap, you're able to do, different things with different aspects of your business. But I guess the rule is, as long as you are targeting, and when we say target, it means that you have honed in on a specific group. It doesn't matter if you've got two specific groups. If your brand can handle it, it can handle it. All you don't want to do is just cast the net over the whole world and say, wherever it lands, I'm happy, because it's not targeted. So literally, I completely agree with that. As long as it's targeted, because I've got different target audiences that, I'll target. But before I learned about all this branding stuff, I too thought it was just one. But it's not always that way. It's brand specific. So I completely agree with that.
100%. And like you said, like it's not even just like on the processes. It's also like you said, like with the like marketing. So like I know specifically, like pick up the mic, the way we post things on like TikTok might not necessarily be the same way we're gonna post stuff on LinkedIn. The same way, like we might say, actually, you know what? Their LinkedIn's getting into video content. We see like higher engagement when we're doing like carousel posts on LinkedIn. Or we might say like, you know, on Instagram, we're seeing like the videos blow up and like people talk about stuff. So it's also about like that understanding like the different the platforms as well. And like, one thing to say about it is I know not necessarily the person's got controversy, but some people don't like it. So Stephen Bartlett, he has a marketing expert. I think her name is Grace Andrews. She's got a LinkedIn page and check her out. But she also does a lot of podcasts and talks about like, how she markets their podcast. And she did one where she broke down like how they know like what clips to post on each platform. And that to me is really interesting. She was just like, you know, LinkedIn is very professional. It's like personal professional development done very well. Instagram is very much about like wellness and mental health and well-being and sort of like perseverance. Just like TikTok is a bit of like, oh, it's like the Wild West, like different stuff could like you could do. And it's just like understanding that means that when you're thinking about content for each of those platforms, it's like, well, think about that. Like if you're in mental health and well-being as well on Instagram, exactly, you should be prioritizing that maybe more so than LinkedIn. If you're talking about professionalism or like networking and stuff, that's not to say you can't post on Instagram, but you know that like, LinkedIn is built for that. So if you're going to post about an event, a workshop, an episode, like the captions and the descriptions and all that stuff should be targeted around that.
And I think as well, even on that, I think this is why there is an importance there. It's not necessarily about how many audiences you have, but it's about how well you know those audiences. Because sometimes when I'm doing coaching sessions and, you know, you'll ask someone, okay, tell me about your target audience. Women 30 to 35. And I'm like, tell me about them. And it's like, women 30 to 35. And it's like, no. What are their interests? What platform do they spend the most time on? What stops them from scrolling? What do they like to do on the weekend? What days are they most likely to be on social media? And all of a sudden it's like, I don't know. When you know who it is you're actually targeting, you can target them. And I think this is where people cut themselves short. They're so eager to run into the business side of things, making the products, selling the products, you know, offering the service, that they don't actually stop and think, well, who's actually going to buy this? And I think this is why people have great products and no customers. Because it's not that your product or service isn't great. It is great. You're just not showing it to the people who want it in the first place. And then businesses will fail and businesses will stop because they think, oh, it's not working. No. It would work if you just sold it to the people that want it. You can't come and sell me something that I don't want and then think that your product is bad. But if you sell it to this person over here, they might buy 100 on the spot. 100%. So you have to understand who it is. So when you're saying about this stuff about what to post on which platform, 100%. I know TikTok likes to see my pet cat a lot more than Instagram does. LinkedIn doesn't even see the cat. Do you get what I mean? So it's important that you understand who it is that you're actually talking to. That doesn't mean abandon all your values and abandon your personality, because that is still you. But you can adapt bits of yourself. It's like sometimes when we code switch or when we're talking to our friends, it will be different language and lingo to what we speak to our parents with. It's just that sort of vibe. It's because we know our parents and we know our friends, you know? So you have to know your audience like they're a person. I would even recommend doing like a customer profile and literally going through every single thing about them as if it was a human being. Because when I ask you who's your target audience, you should be able to describe them to me like you were telling me about your friend from down the road. If you can't, you probably don't know them well enough. So, no.
And you can do, like you said, you can even do it like as an to do, like name them as person. Literally as, this is Joe, shops at this shop, he buys these types of ingredients. Exactly. And my other customer is Pauline. And Pauline's like, she gets her news this way and all this stuff. And it's like, and I think, like you said, when you create them as a person, it's almost like you said, like you're not just saying, oh, my customer is like 18 to 30-year-olds who are interested in professional development. No, it's like, my customer is Joe. Joe is very interested in how he can improve his chances after graduating from after university. 100%. And he's looking at like stuff like LinkedIn to boost his career, like looking for career advice. He's maybe searching on YouTube how to write a great CV. And you know what? Maybe he's even using ChatGPT to help him do it. And so he's looking for the right advice of how he can make himself stand out as a candidate.
100%.
And it's like, when you know it, people will then be like, okay, cool, so you've done your research. You know exactly what you need and what you're looking for.
So what does Joe need? What's he doing during the day? He might be studying. Because he's studying, maybe he's not on his phone as much. Maybe emails aren't the right time to be sending. Or maybe he needs to wake up, to an email in the morning. Like, you don't get this knowledge unless you know who you're talking to. So I completely agree. 100%.
But yeah, we're not going to end. It's
Another year done.
But I think, first off, I want to say big congratulations. I'm actually working. I don't know what it's going to be. So there will be something. I'll probably have to give it to you. I'll either give it to Mel to give to you. Yeah, I will figure out something, a way to give to you. But yeah, we want to do something that says like a celebration, because I think a real honest thing to say is businesses don't always last. Like, there's literally, and a year following a business's launch can also, like, even a year from like two people meeting can mean a business can go through like tough times. So essentially, I don't have anything to say. I also don't know what I'm doing. So only by the rest of this, I will have it up. But I wanted to say, like, basically just say like congratulations, because like, yeah, like I said, as a business owner, I know like how well I'm at. Something chilly. But yeah, I wanted to say, I guess like, well, giving you flowers just sounds like basic. So we'll have proper link. But for now, that's what we're in, man. I wanted to give you your flowers and say like, be really proud of like what you've achieved over the last 12 months. Because yeah, not every business that opened, or is even below the same company, probably still around today. Even between the episodes you recorded and now, like, businesses probably opened, shut, maybe been sued, anything like this, like all this stuff. But yeah, to be able to kind of, like you say, like your business is growing is something you should be proud of.
No, thank you, sir. And I have to say the exact same back to you. Do you get what I mean? Because exactly what you were saying to me, right back at you. We were here, same time, same place last year. And I think even just watching your growth, we don't speak every day. Do you get what I mean? We don't even speak every month. But I'm always watching and I'm always coming for you on the sidelines and liking your posts and, do you get what I mean? Referring people to you, all this kind of stuff. So congrats. Literally, you're doing amazing stuff. You gave me my first podcast opportunity. That video on my TikTok is probably one of my most liked. So thank you very, very, very much. And funnily enough, I don't even think I told you last time, when you had asked me to actually come on the show, maybe like 2 weeks before, I was like, I really want to go on a podcast. I really want to go on a podcast. I don't know why. I just thought it was cool, right? And then you asked me and I was like, oh my gosh. So it's nice that I can kind of see your business grow, check in with you a year later, but also know that you helped me tick off some of those goals that I've actually set motion for a lot of other things that have happened in my business. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're not on to the end. Thank you, Ju, for sharing your amazing journey and growth. As always, this is the opportunity to about yourself. You shared some stuff that's happening this year, but I guess important things are how people connect. Is there anything else you haven't already mentioned you want to remind people of? Let them know. And yeah, I guess if there's any parting message you want to share, just that's it.
So all socials is DBJ Studio UK, and the website is dbjstudio.co.uk. Contact me through any method. Literally, if you Google DBJ Studio, I come up. So you know my SEO is doing what it used to do. But yeah, I think parting message, I think everyone just please keep supporting the channel. Please keep supporting Pick Up the Mic. I think you guys are doing amazing stuff. And you know, I think there are so many more stories to be told through this platform. And I think I always used to think podcasts were this big thing that was so out of reach, but I think you've actually made it achievable for people like me, myself, people like me. So 100% I support the platform to the end, right? To the end. The end is not near, but I will support the platform to the end. And again, say yes, show up for yourself.
Really appreciate it.
And stop spending time on TikTok and Love Island and then saying that you can't spend time working with yourself. That's what I would say.
Really appreciate it. And then you too, wonderful ears coming back for another episode. Like this episode, like and subscribe is always appreciated. Make sure you click the notification bell at the bottom of the video to make sure you don't miss any other episodes of the Hustle Chronicles or any of our other content on the YouTube channel. As well, if you want to support us, receive some merch, get discount, we will be doing a lot more events this year. So if you want to make sure you get discounts on some of those, please make sure you join either our YouTube channel membership or our Patreon. Both will be linked in the description below. If you are interested in sci-fi and fantasy, gaming, or the world of anime, we have 3 additional YouTube channels. We will include a video here so you can see how to get them. If you literally just go to the main channel of that YouTube channel, then yeah, you can see it there and you will be able to basically see our short podcast. It's been a great conversation. We will see you in the next episode where we discuss things. It was so funny. It's usually I say with like a new entrepreneur, a new business. The only going, it might be an old entrepreneur and their business. But yeah, we'll keep you on the toes. We'll let you know. But yeah, that's bye from us here and have a lovely day.